Palantir are a hot topic right now, and it seems that just about everyone in the investing world is speaking about them. So let's see who exactly is buying Palantir shares right now and which massive institutions and individuals actually own the most Palantir shares. Institutional ownership refers to a company's outstanding shares that are owned by institutional investors. So these are things like mutual funds, pension funds, insurance companies, and hedge funds. These institutional investors manage large amounts of money on behalf of clients and shareholders. When you're thinking about institutional investors and who they actually are, think of the likes of Vanguard, Legal & General, BlackRock, the companies that you turn to when you decide you want to invest into a fund. And there's reason that we care about the amount of institutional ownership that a company may have and what them institutional investors are actually doing. Are they buying? Are they selling? We're going to talk about all of that and why we care very soon. But first, let's see who actually owns the majority of Palantir shares. So the entity that own the majority, the most amount of Palantir shares, are an institutional investor. And it's a very famous one indeed. And that is Vanguard. So Vanguard actually own 8.17% of all Palantir shares right now, making them the largest Palantir shareholder out of everyone. Very interestingly, they have been adding Palantir shares recently. So during Q1, Vanguard acquired 2.81 million shares of Palantir. So they are buying this stock right now. So this indicates that Vanguard as a company, as an institutional investor, are very bullish on Palantir. They're very bullish on this company. And you've got to think that Vanguard won't just be throwing money here, there and there into random stocks and companies and hoping for the best. They are investing on behalf of clients through massive funds. So there is a lot of research that goes into their buying and their selling decisions. It doesn't, however, mean that we should just look at what Vanguard or other big institutions are doing and just blindly copy. The second largest shareholder of Palantir shares isn't actually an institution, and instead it's an individual, and that's Peter Thiel. For those of you who don't know, he's a pretty big deal. He co-founded PayPal, and you guessed it, he co-founded Palantir. And he currently still has a position at Palantir, so he is the chairman of the board of directors and has been since 2003. So he actually owns about 8.1% of Palantir shares. A lot of shares, not that far away from what Vanguard own. You might be wondering how many shares 8.1% actually equates to. Well, it's over 163 million. And from February 2022 to February 2023, there was no change in the amount of shares that he actually owned. So he didn't do any purchases and he didn't do any sales of his Palantir shares that were reported in his 13G filings. And then we have BlackRock, which again, I'm sure you've heard of, just like Vanguard. They are a massive global investment management firm. In particular, their iShares ETFs are very popular, and they own 4.4%. And just like Vanguard, they were purchasing in Q1 of this year. They actually acquired 1.93 million Palantir shares. And then fourth, we have Renaissance Technologies. They are actually a really interesting company. They're a hedge fund, but they use high-level, sophisticated mathematical models for investment purposes. So definitely go and have a read of their website and see what they're about. So they currently have 40.61 million shares of Palantir, but unlike the other companies that we've spoken about, Vanguard and BlackRock, they actually sold 2.38 million shares during Q1. So here is the Palantir ownership overview broken down. And what you'll see is that the majority of the Palantir shares are actually owned by the general public, by retail investors like you and like me. So I actually went and found some more data about what the big players are doing with Palantir shares, because I think it's super interesting and gives us such an insight. So I found some data from a company called Whale Wisdom, and they showed that the number of funds holding Palantir stock has actually slightly decreased from Q4 2022. It fell by about 0.51%. And this just indicates that a small number of funds that previously held Palantir stock have actually reduced their positions or sold out of their holdings completely. However, the percentage of ownership has actually risen by more than 4.5%. So although we saw that slight decrease in the number of funds actually holding Palantir shares, the overall owner percentage has actually increased. So this is actually suggesting that either the institutional investors remaining after the ones that have sold their position have doubled down and they've purchased even more Palantir shares. And or it could be suggesting that new institutional investors have come onto the scene and purchased some Palantir shares. Also, to back this up, I found some more data that showed that the new positions of institutional investors in Palantir has risen by more than 30%. So this is implying that a significant number of new institutional investors are starting positions in Palantir, which is showing that there's a real interest out there in this company. So why do we actually care about all this? Why would we sitting at home with our few £1,000 care about what the likes of Vanguard are doing with their millions and millions and millions of dollars? Well, it's because institutional ownership can actually have a very significant impact on the stock market. When institutional investors start accumulating a substantial stake in a company, they are signaling to the rest of the market, including us retail investors, that they have confidence in that company's prospects moving forward. And this, of course, then attracts other investors. It may attract other institutional investors, but it also may attract just us retail investors as well. And we might start buying the shares. And obviously, when more people are buying shares of a company, the stock price will go up. And ultimately, that's what we want as retail investors. We want our stock price to go up so that our shares are worth more when we come to sell one day. On the other hand, if we see lots of institutional investors actually reducing and selling off their shares, it might signal that they're a little bit worried about that company's performance or what they're going to do in the future. And of course, this also impacts the stock price of the company too. And this is really important to know. The impact that institutional ownership and investors can actually have on the stock price in the short term. Like the other day when ARK Invest purchased a lot of Palantir shares, shortly after the stock price shot right up. Now, I'm not saying that is the only reason it went up, because lots of things have been happening with Palantir at the moment, but it's definitely something to consider. And obviously, like I said, these companies do a lot of research before they throw money into a particular stock, but it's not the only thing us retail investors should keep an eye on. So although monitoring institutional ownership can be really interesting, and it can definitely provide us a valuable insight into the market sentiment and trends and industry trends and all of that good stuff, you should definitely use this alongside all the normal things that you look for when deciding where to put your money. The earnings report, the balance sheet, the financials, the management team, the company's products. Do they have an economic moat? All of this stuff that we always speak about on this channel. But it is definitely nice to see that institutional ownership in Palantir has been on the increase. It gives me some confidence that other people are seeing this company too. Big names are seeing this company. But it can definitely be reassuring and give you some confidence when you see the likes of Vanguard and BlackRock also accumulating Palantir shares right now. I just thought it'd be interesting to show you who actually owns the most Palantir shares. Maybe it came as a surprise, maybe it didn't at all. If you want to join my Patreon and get exclusive access to the Discord where we speak about Palantir, but also about many other companies and what we're doing with our stock portfolios right now, then I'll leave a link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again very shortly with another one.